It's a while since I did this. I need to share. I just share, do I? Nothing special.
If you click on share and then it will show, yeah, you got it.
Okay. Okay, cool. You, oh, so wait a minute. What was it? You. I need to go slideshow, don't I? In a sec. That's fine. Okay. So after completing my MA at the RCA, I formed two collectives, one with my wife called Kappa, which I'm going to talk about tonight, and another which I did talk about, I think, about a year ago, just under a year ago, maybe, called SSG, which has been quite active this year, and maybe I can do another talk sometime about what's going on with that. But let's talk about Kappa this time. So first of all, my wife's name is Carrie, and I'm Patrick. So you can see that Kappa is brought together from the KA and the PA from our names. Kappa has another meaning, or a meaning in Japanese. This is a drawing by my wife. It's a Yokia spirit or monster, which is quite a long history in Japanese culture. A lot of that has been in recent times, following the Edo period, has become, and the forming of manga, anime has become very popular. This symbol of this turtle, which has a water, which stores water on it and gets its power from the water it has in its hat on its head, is often used to warn people of keeping away from the water, because in traditional Japanese paintings, this creature would have the habit of pulling people under the water. It could be very helpful at times. It could also be quite dangerous. So it's somewhere between a monster and a. Anyway, it's kind of playful. So that's where the name comes from. I'll try and talk a little bit about how we got the practice going as we go through. But anyway, let me start. And actually, this is a good starting point, because this is a work that was never made, called Embrace. This is a 3D render. So I think we actually formed Kappa in 2022 with the idea of working together. We applied to quite a few things like residencies and a few exhibitions. I don't think we really knew what we were doing. Neither of us had much experience of applying to things. And most of the stuff we were applying in the form of sketches, written word, and we didn't really get anywhere. And I started to expand my 3D rendering skills a little bit, or use it for the application. So this rendering is one of a work was wanted to make called Embrace, which has been shortlisted a few times, but we've yet to make it. Hopefully we make it sometime. But anyway, so one thing that made a big difference to both SSG and Kappa was producing. Okay, I should step back for a minute. We're sculptors. We're trying to be sculptors. Tend to be making rather large things that you wouldn't want to make, or would be expensive to make if you just and you'd have trouble storing them. So we tend to try and get someone to commission the production of the work rather than make it in the studio and then try and present it. So we need to make it visually clear what we're actually trying to make if we're going to get someone else to commission it. So that's kind of affecting our practice. I think it's a little bit different from if you're a painter, or when I used to paint, you just paint, and then you show exhibit the work afterwards. So we tend to make the stuff after we've got a commission. However, we were quite frustrated for some time not getting accepted, and we made this work, which was our interpretation of the previous work as part of the Mark. So I wrote this very quick so I can see some typos, which was part of the Marksfield Road Festival, which occurs every year in North London. We had a studio there, and that's why we were part of that festival. I've shown that a few times. It's a very nice festival. So I should probably talk about Embrace first. Let me go back for a second. How do I go back? So the idea behind this work was partly inspired by, I remember a long, long time ago reading in a magazine article about these people in Poland who love to hug trees. And I had this idea of hugging trees, and I was quite also interested. I think I'd been to some exhibitions in London where someone had been playing with how things connected to each other. And so this idea of putting the twine around a tree and kind of viewing it as hugging. And my wife is particularly interested in interconnectedness of things. It's partly Buddhist in background and kind of influences her own practice. And so this work is meant to embrace the tree, but also make manifest the space between the trees, and in the trees. And also we're very interested in the connection between nature, land, and space. That's where Embrace came from. And here we decided to embrace the space of our gallery and interpret it in a different world, and tried really to, well, we were kind of frustrated because we were not being accepted anything. So this was our response to that. Okay, so here's some more views. I have quite a lot of slides, so I will skip through them. Okay, so where did it all really start? Well, I was working on our work with my wife, which we couldn't really make sense of, but we thought was for a night beer. And then I came across this open call for the Luminaire Light Biennale 2 years ago. There was a competition where they were going to commission 3 or 4 artists to make a light work for the Biennale. And we submitted our proposal and we were accepted. Unfortunately, this Biennale, which has been going for now 15 years and takes place in Durham and is one of the major light art exhibitions in Europe, has now closed for good. This year was the last year. They couldn't get there. It's run by Artichoke Trust. They weren't happy with the funding this year and decided that it was time to close. So that is one of the real problems with a lot of what's going on at the moment, is getting harder and harder to find places that have any funding. Anyway, so our work was one of the Brilliant Artists awarded, and this is some of the publicity. This is my wife, and these are the other artists. So the work that we made was called Unreal Access, or is called Unreal Access. So what is that about? Well, actually, first of all, what is it? It's a door which stands next to a wall. The door stands on a step, and the one corner of the door, which appears to be a wooden door, though it's not, has been unreeled, and light is piercing through the door as if something is escaping. The idea behind the work is kind of inspired a little bit by our own journey. So I think it was probably 2017 when I was just stopping work that my wife suggested maybe we should try to become artists. And that seemed like an impossible dream. And this work is about trying to achieve your impossible dreams, which are usually locked behind closed doors. But, there are other ways to get inside closed doors. So in this case, the power of light has unreeled this impossible dream. And so this is about achieving your impossible dream. And a lot of our work, or all of our work, is about trying to achieve or use art to achieve things that seem impossible. So that's Unreal Access. Now I'm going to go through a few more pictures. This work turned out to be quite popular, and so it was shown next a couple of months later at Nottingham Light Festival, Light Night, Nottingham. And so here you can see it in the daylight. I thought I'd put that one in so you could see what it actually looks like. It was then off to Bella Skyways, which is a big light exhibition which has been going on a long time in Turin, which is a UNESCO heritage site in Poland. When it was there for a few days, and after that we were invited to Helsinki Lux. So now we're the beginning of this year. Helsinki Lux is a big light festival. This is a wonderful exhibition actually to be part of. Some very successful artists there. And the reason for the picture on the right is that they commissioned us to make their first permanent light work in the city of Helsinki, exactly where that door is standing at the moment.
Perhaps I just want to interrupt. I can't see any of the images that you're showing. Sorry.
Oh, really? Has no one seen anything?
No, I can see. The connections seem bad tonight, but I can see them.
I can see very clearly, and I'm sitting in New Zealand. I
So
think it's probably individual connection. I can see very clearly, no problem.
Okay.
I can see fine as well.
Okay. So I'm not sure what's going on under. Maybe a connection. Maybe turn off your camera. Oh, you have. Okay. So yeah, this is still ongoing. It's quite complex to make a permanent light work outdoors. I mean, normally these things are rented out for a few days and then go away in a box. But to actually make it permanently, especially in Helsinki where it's full of snow, is quite a little bit of a challenge. So it's still ongoing. Hopefully we get it done this year. But yeah. And then, so that's actually where it's going to be installed. And maybe I can read what we actually wrote about it. That's why I put it here. Unreal Access is a locked door that stands before a wall. Radiating light shines from the door's perimeter, beckoning what lies beyond. Mysteriously as if malleable, one corner of the door has been unreeled, revealing a light glowing from within. As often in life, the glow of our hopes and dreams remains locked behind closed doors. Through the power of light, Unreal Access asks that we abandon being bound by common sense. Unreal Access is a portal that invites the curious mind to reframe and change its vision of the world. Faced with the unreachable future, Unreal Access points to an alternative route in which firm obstacles melt in the hands and visions of communities and people. Okay, and then actually when I was at the opening of Lumina, one of the curators, I mean, this is really my first ever light exhibition, and I only met a few of the people there for a few minutes, but I met one curator and I asked her what she thought of the exhibition. She said she really loved one work, and she showed me this photo, and it was a picture of our door. And then 6 months later, she contacted me and asked if we would like to be part of Luna Media Festival, which is in Leeuwarden, which is the capital of Friesland in northern Holland. And this work was shown there. That is a wonderful festival, and the media festival is really wonderful. They actually have the light festival is really just an excuse to attract people. There's a media festival which runs for 2 weeks and is for recently graduated students in media art, new media art, and they invite experienced or famous light artists for a couple of days to try and get people to come. So that's outside the media festival inside. So we were invited, and actually we're on the poster and are now there. The door. This is actually the sign on their, what's the word? Their mascot now, at least for the time being. I don't know how long it's going to remain there, but anyway, Luna. This was Luna.
Patrick, can I quickly ask how how are they paying to rent this work from you each time? So you installing it and then taking it away and they're paying you, or how do you manage?
They pay to rent it. They pay to rent it, and they pay for the transport.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, if you're, I'm not really doing it like other light artists, but if you're a light artist, you obviously have to store it. So then you need to cover your storage costs. So I think for some of the light artists, charge quite a lot of money for these things. I mean, mine's relatively small, and I'm not really in the league that a lot of the bigger light artists are. But yeah. So Birmingham Light Festival had their first light festival in February, and they invited a couple of artists to show some work. So that was quite nice because I come from just down the road from here. Okay, and then we were trying to do something other than the door, which has been very popular, and our next thing was this, which is a Comagene. It's a biennale. This is the second year. This was the second of the Comagene biennales. Comagene is a place near the Syrian border in Turkey. It traditionally had a strong Kurdish community, and they have a number of National Heritage Sites or UNESCO Heritage Sites where they stage the exhibition. So it's an amazing place to be part of. So between the first and the second biennale, there was an earthquake in this area, Adeyama, around near Adeyama, which killed 55,000 people and kind of obliterated the homes of all the people. The theme of the exhibition was rising, and we unfortunately have to get accepted. So this is our work, which is entitled Time Crystal. And the reason I took this picture, I have this picture, is in the background. So this is in a place called Karakush. There are two mountains, and at the top of these two mountains are two. At the top of each mountain is a pyramid. A burial pyramid. And this one in front of us is the Queen's burial pyramid, and the other one is the King's burial pyramid. And this work is actually I'm going to say 1 in 25 scale model of the King's pyramid. It's also there is a bit of politics that went on here after we were accepted and all the artists got there was the governor of the region, who was very supportive of the biennale, was ousted, and the new governor was not supportive at all. So it became quite problematic to make this work in the timescale for all the artists. I think it's a bit partly because it's a Kurdish themed biennale, partly because there was a lot of complaints by some people why you have an art exhibition when there's just been an earthquake. Anyway, it became quite a problematic thing. So some of the aspects of the work proposed were not achievable in the timescale. But I will say that the work originally, and partly here, is meant to be at an angle skeweth to the land, because it's meant to be reflect the earthquake, and it's meant to be rising towers above, out of the ground, and time crystal because it's eternally overcoming what people face. I mean, this is a place where there are regularly earthquakes, and this monument behind is from ancient Greek time, and the other monument, the king's monument. This is a king who is meant to have helped build the Tower of Babel, and it's has a number of stone sculptures, all of which have fallen down, and so there are just heads lying on the floor because the earthquakes are very regular there. So, okay, so this is a closer view, and you can see this mountain here in the background is where the king's burial site is. So, well, it is what it is. It wasn't quite as big as we intended, but that was limited. And it should still be there. I think it will stay there. I met, while I was in Cyprus for just a couple of weeks ago, I met the director of the exhibition, and they will have another one shortly, and the work is still there. And what they will do with all the work when they install the new works is the government gave them an island, and they have built a house on the island for residents, and they slowly move all the work that is made to this island. There were some of the works were installed directly onto the island, but the ones that were, so there were 3 sites. There's one of the oldest bridges in the world next to there. There was sites. There was also a very old, very old, I think, pre-Roman time village, stone village, which no one lives in anymore, where they had works. There was this place which is Karakush, and there is I forgot the one, Nemrut, which is that mountain in the distance. I was originally intended to have it in Nemrut, but when I got there, I realized it was almost impossible to get this to the top of Nemrut. You would have had to carry it, so it couldn't work. So we put it here, and so you can see it next to Nemrut. So this thing there is meant to be as 25:1 scale model of Nemrut. And this is some of the what you actually see on the ground in Adiyama when you're there. Anyway, this is actually, I was talking to these people just today. These are the people who helped me build it, actually. Oh, this person here is the father of the welder who helped me weld it. And they are here in temporary accommodation, and they're still in temporary accommodation because even though the government said they would build new houses, I think there's been a lot of corruption, and they're all still living in poverty. Okay, following that, so this is now quite recently, and when Sherry was saying I had nothing planned, I didn't until this popped up, which was so this is the Land Art 25 Biennale. So I think it's the 6th edition of the Andorra Biennale, And this year they held it in San Julian, which is where they held it last year, which is the previous time. It's and kind of an industrial town near the border. I think it has a history of what's that word? When you sneak things in through the border, I've forgotten the word. Smuggling. And this hotel, which is where they were going to, where they hosted the most of the exhibition, was now derelict, and so they had a derelict hotel to hold the exhibition. And the plan is after the exhibition that it will be restored into a community space. So I will read what it's. No, I can't read what it says because it's in Spanish. Okay, so our work is called Stratum. The theme of the exhibition is reflection. And somewhere, I don't know where that came from, whether it came from, I'm sorry, I don't know what happened there. I don't quite remember how it came about, but I think it may have said somewhere in the open call reflection on the last 25 years of the century, or maybe I inserted that. But anyway, it's about the last 25 years of the century and where we've reached. Where's the slideshow? So it consists of 25 dolls or figures. So I actually made this in 3D as a 3D model, which is quite a complicated thing to do. And I actually made one doll and then made 25 of them and dropped them in a simulation on top of each other. And then we made from these dolls patterns from the 3D model. My wife's background is she used to be a fashion designer, so she could convert what I created into a pattern. And then she made the dolls. I made the resin hearts and we installed it together. So it's 25 dolls connected by red threads and one doll on the top, the 25th, reaching up into the sky for the next thread. Okay, it has a number of ideas behind it. One is reflected in the name, stratum, which is a layering of well, here I want to think of it as time or a mountain. Andorra is, of course, very mountainous, so maybe it's the mountain. It's a reflection of the mountain of Andorra. That is Andorra. It's also a mountain of time. Each doll is unique as its own, and each is a reflection on where we get to each year. As again, I said, all of our work is kind of is an idea of hope and reaching for what we might achieve. And so this doll is reaching up for where we may get it, or stepping on the shoulders of others. We might also say wearing its heart on its sleeve. That's that. Stratum is a sculptural installation made of 25 life-size fabric figures arranged in the shape of a human pyramid, soft, fragile mountain that evokes the landscape of Andorra while speaking to the interdependence of human connection. Carrie and Patrick Jones built this work from bodies that support each other, connected by a red thread, like a vital cord that runs through the figures and unites them, reminding us that we, sorry, I can't see this one. Remind us that we are community, memory, and mutual support. The 24 figures collapsed, bound, symbolize the weight of history and the collective strength that sustains us, while the upper figure, upright with a heart of shining red resin, reaches towards the red thread suspended from the ceiling, a gesture of tension and hope that speaks to the human longing and growing without forgetting where we've come from. This mountain of fabric, fragile, flexible, adapts to the space, like a guest settling into a hotel full of stories, transforming the place into a space of contemplation about the shared memory, the passage of time, and the need for support among us. Strata reminds us that we are not alone, that we are different yet united, and that we are always in the process of sustaining and elevating one another. The work is part of the theme of Andorra's pause to continue, inviting us to stop and recognize the threads that connect us and the value of moving forward together with awareness and care. So this is in the basement of the hotel. It was quite a wonderful exhibition. There are some quite famous artists there, but there are also some very talented young artists. You can imagine, I can't give you the reference, but I remember reading about some exhibitions in, like, you walk in the exhibition in buildings, disused buildings, and you don't realize you're walking in the exhibition. You open the room and you're in someone's room and you think, is it real? Is this a exhibition or is this a real life thing? Well, if you have a hotel, you can create this atmosphere where you walk in this room, and room number 21, room number 35, and it's a whole world that opens up. And a number of the artists created really fascinating works on that theme. So it was a brilliant space. They also hosted 8 works outside in the landscape, which could only be seen really by driving in the car. Were wonderful as well. I think in the past there has been more outside, but in the last 2 biennales, the last one they took over an old cigarette factory, and this one they took over a hotel. Okay, now while I applied for the Andorra Biennale, I also applied to the Lefkosa Biennale, which is basically Nicosia, and we got accepted for that as well. Unfortunately, the 2 biennales overlapped, so rather than making 25 dolls, we had to make 50 dolls, which was quite some challenge. But the one came after the other, so we learned a little bit from the first installation. But now, we also were fortunate to be placed in the cathedral, or the old cathedral, which was a beautiful site to place the work. The only real difference here is the arrangement is a little bit different, but is that we changed the top doll. They didn't have very much money to spend, and so they asked us, and we had enough fabric from the previous installation, but we didn't quite have enough fabric for the top doll, so we remade a doll, the top doll in a different material. Otherwise, they're basically the same. We added one extra piece. We wanted to see the light shine through. So each doll has a resin heart, but the one on top has a resin heart at front and back. And we wanted, so the idea was you could see the light shine through the doll that's standing up, but it didn't really work in Andorra because to put the light shining through, it got in people's eyes. So for this one, I made an LED light and put it inside the doll, which is a very small thing. So this resin heart lights up a little bit better. Okay, now Nicosia has a long history. When you go to Nicosia, which is on the Turkish side, it's full of bombed buildings, and there's been endless wars there over the city. So it's has a very layered history of time. This was their first biennale, and the theme of the biennale was compassion. And it was there were a lot of they invited quite a lot of philosophers to come and discuss the idea of the meaning of compassion. It was an incredibly well curated exhibition and organized exhibition, given it's their first one. They had 100 artists, which is just an incredible number of artists. And they also decided to host the Gaza Biennale, where they invited 50 artists from Gaza. our work, which is very similar. I'll read it anyway. I'm sorry. Stratum is a sculptural installation of 25 life-size figures, and the human parade is off fragile mountain evokes a landscape speaking to interdependence of humans over. Sorry, I won't read it because it's exactly the same. I think there's some bit. Well, I won't read it because I think if it is different, I can't find it different. So anyway, yeah. And that is it. We should. It hasn't been announced, but it will be announced this week, I think. Probably, hopefully, before this video goes online. You should, if you want to see the door, it will be appearing in this year's, what's it called? Winter Lights at Canary Wharf, which is a very big light festival that runs from I don't know, it's the Tuesday to the Sunday, the last week of January, if you want to see the door. So, any questions?
I have. You put this heart on. Why was it so literally a heart? Well, why did you use that symbol? Because the rest of it, it gives you enough. It's powerful enough to see all these bodies lined up, especially in heart, somewhere like Cyprus where they had the war, and they still have the UN are still sort of keeping people separated, aren't they? So why did you have to literally put a heart on?
Well, the original idea behind the work was the work for we can talk about both ones, but the reason for the heart, as I said, there is a saying that says one wears one's heart on one's sleeve. This isn't a heart internal, this isn't a heart external, which means to be forthcoming. And I think if one looks at how one might interpret compassion, I think this idea of, in order to be compassionate as opposed to sympathetic, one needs to wear one's heart on one's sleeve. So, this exhibition is really about compassion, and I think the heart, well, I think without the heart it wouldn't. I think there's a danger with this work that you can misinterpret it. I only say that because I talked to some people when they were looking at the work, that in this, a lot of tourists coming in and asking me about the work. They don't necessarily understand how a stack of bodies might be compassionate, but I don't think it's meant to be a stack of bodies in that sense. It's not in any sense meant to be about death. These hearts are all alive. These are not meant to be individuals. This is meant to be the thread of time. So the compassion, the heart, I think in some way, for Nicosia is a reflection of the theme, which was compassion. And there's another reason, to put it literally, when we created this work, I think maybe 20 years ago, we bought a doll in Peru, a crochet doll, which had a red heart stitched on its front. And we were looking at this doll, and that was what inspired us to make the work. So there was a red heart on that doll. That's actually, if you want to know literally where the original thought came from.
Yeah.
Patrick, thank you very much for sharing this amazing work. I'd like to ask you a question about the door, the first installation you showed us. So is is it the scale of a normal door? Did you size it up slightly bigger?
No, it's the size of a. I don't know whether. Let me just go back. I don't know whether. Oh yeah, I did show you one in the light. Oh yeah, you can see it here. There's a step. No, it's the size of a front door, not an internal door.
Yeah, front door. Okay.
Yeah. So I mean, it's about 1 meter wide, slightly less, and it's less than 2 meters. I think I can't remember. I mean, the door itself. It looks
Yeah.
very real, and people will go and try and open the door because they think it's like a real door. It's got real. Those are architectural fittings are just what you buy from the shop because we bought them from the shop. So we try to make it as exactly like a real door.
Okay, because that's what I was going to ask you. What did you make it out of? Did you do it like a timber door and then you put
It's made from
fascia?
It's made from dye bond. Dye bond is the material you use for making signs. So it's aluminium composite.
Okay.
Which is relative. It's a very tricky actually because it's 2 layers. You need to roll them at exactly the right angle to get them to appear to be parallel, and you cut all the pieces out. It was not simple, pretty tricky.
No.
And if we make it permanently, we can't make it from dye bond because dye bond wouldn't last permanently outside. I think signs have a lifetime of 3 to 4 years, so we would have to make it from steel. I think stainless steel probably.
Right,
Which
because
should be even more
always,
tricky.
yeah, because I suppose somebody looking at it for the first time would think, oh, that's such a simple idea and you've brought it to life, but it's far more complicated than that because having to light it, I mean, where did you put all the lighting
Well,
units?
it's at the back. It's what is that? It's like 30 centimeters deep, and hidden in the 30 centimeter depth are all the lighting units. I mean, it's got it's not wooden. It's made from recycled plastic. The surrounding and the doorstep. So inside all of that is a steel frame, and inside the steel frame is the lighting. LED.
Where it looks terrific. It looks really good.
I have a question, Patrick.
Yeah.
Thanks for sharing all those work. Some of the work, I think, especially land arts, sort of like materials like stones and standing visual element, I think correspond very well with the surrounding environment. So my question is, how much of your work would you say is a concept developed from open code and etc., or how much of that would be what you call site specific or responding to the site that is going to sit in?
Well, I think our work is you would say that our work is site specific. And most of I mean, I guess that's what we've ended up being, a site specific artist.
Okay.
But as I said, there is a theme that kind of connects all the work, which is something to do with it's probably time. All of them are connected by time, and all of them are connected by hopes and dreams for the future and the power of art. But they're all site specific. So I mean, there are many open calls. Some of them which we wouldn't apply to because they wouldn't fit into our agenda if you saw them in. So
Good one. Good answer. Thank you.
Patrick, I'd love to know how it works with your practice working with a partner, especially your wife. And because I know, and we're not talking about the other group tonight, but you're very keen to work collaboratively in a group. So is that because it's better for opportunities? Is it easier way of working? How and why do you sort of choose to do it in that way?
In relation to the other group, it was so for the other group we made while we were at the RCA, we were put together randomly to make a proposal for a sculpture, and somehow we kind of clicked, and we found we all wanted to do things in a certain way. So that was the reason, and we made some proposal, and it was lots of other Lester, one of the people in one of the other groups made proposals, but somehow we wanted to realize it, and we spent 2 years to try and realize this. So that's how that one came about. After I'd finished at the RCO, I asked them if they'd like to try and do it. So I was trying to find some type of project, but I thought it was quite interesting. In the case of my wife, well, as I said, in 2017, we were wondering what to do, and she suggested art as something we could do together. So I guess we have quite different practices. So working with my wife is, we don't make a lot of work because it takes, I was thinking of Duchamp. He always complained that he made very few works because it took a long time and a lot of thinking before him to. Well, in a way, that's kind of the way it is where my wife is. It's like a lot of arguments to find something that we want to make together. So a number of open calls we have been working on a work, and at some point we just give up and say, no, it's not good enough. One of us doesn't like it. So it's much more difficult than working with the two Chinese friends of mine, where we're much more. So I think in that, the difference is, I think in the case with my wife, we need to both be 100% behind the idea. Whereas with the Chinese group, it's much more open. We go with the flow. One of us may have a particular idea and we just follow it along, or that's not to say we don't all come on board at some point, but it's much more dynamic the way. Whereas with my wife, it's much more, we have to get it right from the beginning, which limits the amount, makes it much more time consuming, demanding to get the work to work.
Sorry, when you're applying to open calls, do you feel like the curators are more likely to select a working partnership than an individual artist, especially as you're starting out, like developing a name for yourself in this area, or does that not matter? It's all about the work.
I don't think so. I don't think it helps particularly. What I can say is it does help. It's a pretty tough world applying to open calls. You can, unless you're a genius, it's like 1 in 20 acceptance rate. So there's two things about working as a team. One is you can get a lot more work done as a team, and two is it's a lot easier to get refused when you're working as a team than as an individual, I think. I mean, you get more self-support, so it's easier to take the continual knocks. I don't know, it depends on that. I know lots of people who don't apply because they don't want to get rejected, or they think it's too painful, and I completely understand that. And I think working as a team helps cope with that kind of pain that you continuously face. Because of course you think your project is great and you really imagine it in that space, and then you never get to do it, so you end up with a lot of projects. However, as I said with the door, actually, you're not throwaway, right? You get to, and I think that's quite important. Early on, when we were applying to things, we were applying to, you get open calls where they are very, very precise about what they want, and they've got a space, and it's got to be, and you make this work. The idea, site-specific idea, but in fact, once they say no, the work is worthless, is useless. It could only have possibly have gone in that one particular space. Well, I pretty much realized after a while that I shouldn't be wasting my time on such things, because the chances of getting accepted are very, very low, and you don't have time to spend a month on something and just throw it away. never to be realized. So I pretty much avoid these things that are so specific, because they don't pay you for this. They're not, you don't get anything for all your time. And you just got to be practical about it. I mean, occasionally we do it when we really believe in our idea, but it's rarely that I do that now, because it doesn't lead anywhere. It's not productive. What's productive is to have an idea, work on it, and then improve it next time. You keep using it until you eventually show it. That's productive. But having something that's just a dead end that you can't show it because they didn't accept it there, and then there's nothing, So that you need to be a bit practical, because you can waste a lot of time working on things.
Patrick, can I just say something?
Mm.
Yeah, sorry, I missed a little bit because my phone rang and I had to answer it. It was a doctor. But I love your door because it's mystical, it's magical, it's a fairy tale, it's all sorts of things. It's a very English door with a letterbox. It's quite funny. And I quite like it when it's in a kind of like, I think you've got a foreground of some grass or something in that second image that you've got there. But I just wanted to make a comment about the other piece, which is that when you put a piece out, you cannot determine what your audience, how your audience are going to respond. And I know you had lots of very good intentions, but if I just come across that now at this particular point in time, with everything that's going on in Ukraine, in Gaza, and the history of other kind of genocides all over the world, I'd be thinking, this is something about a genocide, and why is the person on the top looking so happy with a big heart? That would be my response. And I totally get what you're saying. So it's a little bit sort of like, it's a question mark that I know that other people have asked you that question because you mentioned that. And I just wondered if, on reflection, you've had any thoughts about that.
I'm aware of that. I was always aware of it, but I don't think that's the reason not to make the work. That isn't the reason. As you said, it's like death of the author, right? I can't control what people interpret it. It has a certain meaning for me, and maybe it has a meaning for somebody else.
Sure.
Yeah. Yeah.
Could it actually open up those type of conversations? That it could be about genocide, or just to get people to talk about that sort of thing. Or would
I'm sure
you?
it could. I'm sure it could,
clear?
But that's not really
So
an area that I'm
in
interested in. That's not an area that I want to explore particularly.
Yeah, but are you then? I'm not sure if you're a type of artist that actually wants to explain their work or their thinking, or just the
reality is, even if you want to explain your work, you can't, because you're not there when it comes to 99% of the conversations. Right? I have no objection to explaining my work, or putting us, next to this work there is an explanation of what it's about. But people don't read that, and everyone's entitled to their own interpretation. So but that's actually the beauty of it. But that's the beauty of art, right? It has many different interpretations. It's not fixed. I don't have any problems with it. In fact, it's quite interesting. While it's been on show in Nicosia, I've seen videos of people, blogs of people talking about the work, and their interpretation of the work isn't my interpretation. It's quite interesting to see that. But I mean, that's true of everybody's work.
it'd be interesting too to see when you're showing the same work in different locations with different audiences, how the interpretation, changes, how it's read differently.
Yeah, I mean, in the case of Nicosia, as I said, they're also hosting the Gaza Biennale right next door to this at the same time. So there's obviously a lot of, and the theme is compassion. There's a lot of genocide is not something that isn't part of the discussion, or it's actually this question of what is compassion is in the backdrop of course, what is going on in the world. And they invent that theme without thinking about exactly what's going on, the wars that are currently going on in the world. So have this, and in fact, this work is probably at the center stage for the whole exhibition, the location they picked. So, yeah, I don't know. I guess you could say I guess your one interpretation is it's quite a controversial setup, but.
So that's okay if it's controversial. So what,
Yeah, well, that's my point. I mean, so what exactly? That's actually what I'm saying. I mean, in no sense do I think of those as dead bodies or blah blah blah, but somebody else may. I mean, to me, okay, there is one image that I think of that I thought about when we made this work. There's I'm going to forget the name of the artist. So artist Jonathan really likes, a painter who paints, a Jewish painter who was part of the, what do they call it? I'm not sure I can remember, but there's one painting, it looked almost comical. He's painted thousands of bodies, well, not bodies, feet lying on top of each other from a distance. And he's one of the abstract expressionist artists, and he gave up abstract expressionist at some point towards the end, because end of the 50s, because he thought it was a bit, I don't know, he reacted against it anyway, and he was hated by the other abstract expressionists. And the work is actually, which looks kind of comical from one point of view, because the way he's painted it is a heap of people from Auschwitz. And I'm aware of this image, and but I don't think it stops me from making this work. I'm aware that that you could interpret it in many ways, but
I mean,
that isn't my interpretation.
I think it does have a comical aspect to it, and I think there are lots of signifiers in there that you can say all sorts of things about, like Empire State Building with a hand being raised, or I mean, there's loads of things you could understand. So in that sense, it has an openness about it. I was just thinking of the context, that was all. Yeah, I think it's okay to be controversial, and I'm glad that it stimulated discussion. That sounds interesting.
There was another work that I made. This is with the other group, which was a boat, and I also worried a lot about that work as well.
A boat, did you say?
A boat, yeah, because there were lots of people drowning in the Mediterranean.
Oh,
it was also tricky work, and it's also tricky. It was shown in China, and no one in China had any inkling of that it might be slightly controversial. But still, yeah. I think you still have to. It wasn't about that at all. That theme, but yeah, no. It's difficult to be an artist without some point being controversial, even if one doesn't want to be.
Well,
No, it's not trying to be. So
yeah, my thinking is that if you're looking at, say, like your artwork is in a book with other artists, you're looking at artwork, you're not looking at the politics of the time, you know? So in that way, it's divorced from the current events and politics, isn't it, really?
yeah,
You know,
I mean,
and you're in that same bubble when you're in an exhibition. It's all, you know, it's been curated for a reason.
I think in context, I mean, for the people who came to Andorra and the people who are in Nicosia looking at the work, I think there wouldn't be a problem. But out of context, for people who don't know what it's about, who just glance at it on Instagram, maybe they interpret it a different way. But there's nothing I can do to control that. That's exactly death of the author.
Patrick,
Accept that. Yeah.
I just wondered about your thinking about the hearts as well, although I understand what you've been explaining about how it's to do with compassion rather than genocide, or so you're trying to add a lightness. But the hearts also add a bit of superficiality, do they not? And because of the way we use that heart symbol, it brings in a lot of other ideas. And I was just wondering if it would help to make the hearts a little bit more anatomically correct, or to make an interpretation of the heart in some way. I'm just wondering if you thought through that, like whether that was a choice that you had decided against. I don't know if that would work. I just wondered if it would bring in the idea of liveness and individuality to the, but I don't know if it would. I'm just wondering if you'd thought through it and if you could explain the process of arriving at that. Yeah.
I'm not sure I really want what I need. So I'm not trying to divert away from the heart as a show, a common show, if you see what I mean. I mean, you say trivial, but
I didn't say trivial.
I've forgotten the word. But
I said superficial.
Superficial, sorry.
Yeah.
I don't see why it can't have a superficial image, or why it shouldn't be superficial. I mean, if superficial means, I mean, the heart is
surface. Yeah.
I don't. No, I don't see the need to do them. But no, I didn't consider it because I don't. I was trying to have that symbol, so I wouldn't do them.
Okay, we're just wondering, you know, how you got to that decision, but because it seems to be, you know, a conversation. It's part of the conversation, but yeah, it is there's a lot of different associations that can go with dolls and heaps of people, and then the heart subject. So I was just, yeah, it's a curious work.
Well, what does a symbol on a uniform imply? And a uniform in the sense that they are you know, they're all wearing like they all look quite similar. So you could think, are they military? Are they, you know, who are they? What are they? Because they all look, yeah, in a similar outfit possibly. And then what the symbols on outfits symbolize will be another way of thinking about it. Yes, you put a heart, but it could be anything else. That's what I meant when I said there are lots of kind of aspects to it that can take your mind in different directions.
Yeah, I know. I mean,
can I just maybe change it a little bit? I really, really, really like your circles, and not like, but in my far better word than that. But the circles, just I don't know. You don't need to know the meaning. There's just a pureness about them that I suppose the same sort of feeling as hugging a tree, but the simple how, because they're so simple.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'd like to make that one.
I hope you do, because it's very that's very kind of like, oh, I don't know, it just has an immediate sort of draw.
It may be too simple.
It might be too
Difficult
literal
to
if
get.
it's just next to a tree, but it could be next to something that is.
I mean, we've proposed it a few times. It did get shortlisted a few times. We have another version of it which it's adapted. It's become more complex. I don't know whether it's ever going to be accepted. You never know with these things. But yeah, I mean, it's also something that is simple enough that I could just make it anyway, without commission, as we made in the studio.
Patrick, when you hug a tree, I don't know if you hug trees, but there's a lot of feeling, and it's a very sort of sensual experience. And I wondered if that had been part of your thinking, or could that be part of your thinking?
I mean, I was looking. It's a long time since I read that article, and at the time I was interested, but kind of skeptical. I don't think I was even an artist when I read that article, but I thought it's kind of quite poetic. And recently I was looking into it a little bit more. You know, people do it, and this, I think, what people were doing in Poland, from a psychological point of view, to combat life in the city. But there is also people arguing. There was also people trying to argue that the tree emits chemicals and oils that is good for the skin and things like that. So there are other reasons you might do it. For me, it was really about being. It's kind of symbolic of being centered not on the human, but centered on something other than the human, or connecting to nature, if you were. But the tree is just an example of another living organism. So that was why I thought it was interesting, or why what interested me in proposing that work.
I love too that it's drawing your eye to the negative space between the branches and between the trees. And I think Hockney talks a lot about that when he's thinking about the volume of trees and the volume that the tree takes up. You can't actually see often, or it's a very different depiction of the volume when it's in leaf versus when it's not, and then the branches are showing. So yeah, it reminded me of that too.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'd like to make it. In a later version, there were two hands holding each other, you know, but maybe that's more complicated than it needs to be. Yeah, but that's just an example. I put that there partly because it's an example of the way our practice tends to work, because things don't get accepted and we reflect on them and think, oh, well, actually, maybe this is a better idea, or we prefer this, or so. Or that all works I've shown, but probably another 10 other ones that are floating around in the ether, as it were, that maybe sometime they'll be made, maybe not. It'd be nice to have a practice and a big studio. When I was in China, I asked one of the artists, how big is your studio? And he said, 100 meters by 100 meters. It's quite small. And I employ 10 people. It'd be nice to be in the position where I could just make everything that I dream of, but nowhere near that.
One day, just keep refining those ideas and keep reapplying. I think one day you're getting there. Thank you so much. I think we'll wrap it up because we're over time, but I'm going to send out, thank you, Patrick. I'm going to send out invitations or possible dates for January because it looks like Patrick's been outvoted on the Christmas versus January catch up. So I'll send out some possible dates for January, and then we can all get together and decide what it is that we want World Parlour to be in 2026.
Thank you very much, Patrick. And thanks, Sharon, for doing all the, keeping us all in touch and sending out the links and stuff. It's a lot of work, so thanks very much.
My pleasure.
Yeah.
We can...
Sharon, are we doing a Christmas meal?
No, we discussed actually just before the call that it looks like the votes are to catch up in January. So I'll send some potential dates for January, and we can all vote on when everyone's available.
Yeah. Okay. Cool. Yeah.
So this is the last call for this year.
Oh. Well, Merry Christmas, everyone.
Yeah.
Yes.
True.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I hope everyone has a good break. Thank you again, Patrick. It was great seeing your work, and also big thanks to Sharon for organising all of this. Much appreciated.
My pleasure. It's all our group, and I'd love everybody to sort of feedback and think about what it is that they want World Parlour to be in the coming year, because I think it's so valuable. So something we can all use and flex and grow and imagine.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thanks,
Bye,
everyone.
Bye.
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 Bye. Bye. Bye.